it's Jean here, Jean Truelove from Truelovequiltsforyou. This is the third part of my tutorial on my little zipper bag here. You've seen part 1 and part 2. If you haven't, you have to refer to it because I was showing you how to cut, how to make it the pocket assembly, and now this is how I finished it up with my zipper and my bias tape here. Now if you've been watching, you realize that this is the tutorial, this little black bag here that I use my purchase binding. I've made a ton of these now. They're very addictive, and I've made them larger, and I've made them now with regular quilt binding. Again, I addressed that in part 2 of my tutorial. These are the ones that I made that are slightly larger and that have my quilt binding. Now I wanted to, before I get into my tutorial, and it's not long because it's just me putting, well of course it's long, I might be putting my zipper on. This one I made out of this Starry Night fabric. It's sweet, pretty little thing. I made this bag with the same size pockets of this one, but I made the outside larger, as you can see. This measures about 5.5 inches this way, by 10 inches that way, whereas this one only measures about 4 inches, about 4 inches high. But as I was saying in my first tutorials, that the pockets on this one, although it opens, it was slightly large, the inside pockets. It still works beautifully. But I've been tweaking these. I've made maybe a dozen right now. This was not this one. This wasn't even my latest. What I'll show you is what I've done the tutorial on for the zipper, because I forgot something happened when I was doing the tutorial on my camera for this initial bag. My camera must have clicked off and I was videoing nothing. I went to edit it and I'm like, oh. So I made another one, and I show you how I put the zipper on the same way as this. This again has the quilt binding. I explained this is a 2-step process. I haven't shown that because I'm fed up, but I'm just showing you now that this one I made larger, but the pocket's the same size, marked at about 3 inches, but taller sides. Okay, that worked, sort of. That worked. Because the whole point is this little case is enclosed fully. So people are saying, oh, can you make it so the big one's enclosed? I don't know. I don't have a pattern. I'm just messing about here. But this one I had the sides taller, and that worked pretty good. But I thought, well, why couldn't I try to figure out to make the pockets taller? And this is what I came up with. Now these pockets, while not perfect, again, because I'm still really just experimenting. I do not have a pattern for this. There is a pattern out there somewhere for this bag, but I don't have it. I've not been using it. I've been taking a little bit from this tutorial and that tutorial and coming up with my own, as you know I do. So this one, this is pretty. This is the one I'm doing the actual tutorial for the zipper. I came back to my purchase zipper binding because that's what I started out with. So this has the purchase bias binding on the zipper tabs, and that's just one step, which I will show you how to do. And I've perfected it to a certain extent. As you can see, my pockets are taller. So this bag, which measures, again, this bag is about 6.5 by 10. This is a much larger bag, but it's all enclosed. I managed to do it with these dimensions, which I'm going to show you. Again, I'm not doing a tutorial on the large bag. If you started making these, you'll see that, as I say, they're quite addictive. And I messed this up slightly, but I also wanted to, I'm going to put some still pictures up because I wasn't going to do a full tutorial, but I wanted to show you I actually did a zipper end. It's a zipper end. I was very, very pleased. I came up, because I thought they were fiddly. They're not really. So I've just taken still pictures of how I did those zipper ends so that the zipper goes into a nice little end, and I'll take a picture, as opposed to going into the seam. And that way we don't need to fiddle about with stitching them or anything, or cutting them and stitching them, or the safety pins like I was doing. Now again, this bag is not quite perfect. The pockets are slightly askew. I'm not quite sure how to do that, and it's getting much better. Again, because I had to fiddle the pattern or pieces from my original, and I came up with almost 100% measurements. Don't hold me to it because I don't have a pattern, but this is how it turned out. I'm really, really thrilled with that. This is my backing on this little one. And again, I use all sorts of different fabrics. These are, I'll give you the measurements, 10 1/4, and I've marked my pockets, and that's on a second piece of paper, which I'll just then to take a still picture of. I marked my pockets 4.5 inches to make that larger pocket. You see that? That's a larger pocket. This is a much larger bag. The zipper's enclosed. I've used my lining on the inside. I still have the bags, and I put the pocket is just literally 2 pieces of fabric put together. Someone said, "Oh, how do you make a pocket?" I'm like, it's 2 pieces of fabric, pretty sides together. You fold it and stick it on. I just have a little pocket in there. And again, this isn't perfect, but I'm pleased because the zipper, when you tuck it all in, the pockets are enclosed. Look at that. And it's bigger. This is a nice sturdy bag. So right now I'm going to tell you, if you want to get a pen out before I do my tutorial on the zipper, for the larger bag, for this larger bag, not this one with the pockets enclosed, but sort of the same size as that. It turned out the same size. But for this one, with the pockets all the way to the top, I've cut 1 piece of outside fabric, 10 1/2 inches by 5 inches, by 15 inches, 10 1/2 by 15. Again, I'm cutting it a little bit, everything's slightly bigger, you can trim off. So that's the outside fabric, this piece here. And of course, again, refer to part 1 because that shows you all the interfacing, the batting you need for this. The 4 pockets on the inside, I have cut 4 pieces of fabric for my pockets. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. I've cut them 10 1/4 by 10 1/4. That's for these 4 different pockets. Now for my pocket lining, you cut 6 pieces, 10 1/4 by 6 inches. Again, you have some flappy bits at the bottom, but I err on the larger side. But it's the 10 1/4, and then the outside 10 1/2. Which makes sense when you go to put the pocket assembly on the backing. Now you want to cut, this was a little bit funky. It worked at this measurement, but again, just you have to, this is the trickiest part. But this worked pretty good. So I cut 4 pieces of fabric, 2 outer pieces, 2 lining pieces. And again, if you have all the same fabric, awesome. But I have all different funky fabrics. So my outside and my inside, I have 2 each. I've cut those side panels at 17 inches long by 5 inches wide. And again, we might have to slice that down slightly to finish in here. But again, that I explain to you, or I take some pictures of that. Now this piece here, again, if you have to refer back, even though it's a little bit larger, you do it the same exact way as in part 1 or part 2. You fold that piece in half, the 17 by 5. You measure 4 1/2 inches from the fold, from the center, make a little dot, and then you cut the diagonal from the 4 1/2 down to the corner. So you have 2 pieces that end up sort of a wedge shape. So then from that, exactly the same way, you mark the center bit, you fold it in half, and then you mark 2 1/2 inches from that fold center line, because it's folded in half, and then the 2 1/2 inches makes that seam, the other 2 1/2 inches makes that seam when you wrap it around. Again, you can see the specifics in part 2, how I made these side ones. And it's the measurement as I've gotten better is so that these here, this side bit folds into a lovely U, and there's no puckers there. My first one is terrible because I didn't do it right. I didn't cut it right, I didn't measure it right, but the more I'm getting, there's a little fold there, a little tuck there, but there's hardly any fold here. This is what it's supposed to look like. I haven't yet got it perfect because perhaps I'm not being exactly perfect. As I say, I don't have an exact pattern. And I would think if you're off a little bit, but and I've been off a little bit, but it looks fine. It looks awesome. It pretty much folds flat. I mean, pretty much, sits flat when the zipper is open. Again, I show you in vaguely how to make the little zipper tabs. I must say I got these zippers and they were 24-inch zippers. I call for a 22-inch zipper. They're not 24 on they measure like 23 and a half or something to the teeth or something like that. But I got them online. I got them online, bulk, because if you're making these bags, you're making a lot of zippers. You're using a tremendous amount of zippers. But I just got them in bulk. I think I got 50 or 60 for like $14 on something or on Amazon. And so I'm very pleased. And again, this bag, everything tucks in and nothing, just like the original little bag, nothing will fall out. So I have quite perfected it to a certain extent. Again, different interfacings. This one is a little bit sturdier because I used a foam and then a Pellon craft fuse. So this is a bit sturdier here. This one is more cushy because I just used a fusible batting. But again, you can, if you want it stiffer or if you want it cushier, or even if you wanted to have it really substantial, you could even, the pockets are padded, but if you wanted to interface them to make them not padded but stiff, you could. It's up to you. Again, this is the directions. This video to follow is showing you how I put the zipper on this purple one here, but the tutorial is this one. It's done exactly the same way. So I hope you enjoy the end of this little pouch making foray into this world of pouch making. I'm really thrilled. I have made so many of them. Excuse me. These are my larger ones here that I've made. These are my larger ones. They all turned out really lovely. Oh, another point again. If you're just tuning in, the actual if you're using a directional fabric, I addressed that in part 2. If you're using a directional fabric, which my Sorry Night fabric was here, when I did my 10.5 by 15, I cut it, and then I put the fabrics going that way. So when it pops up, the fabric's going the proper way with a little strip down the middle. That's like an extra strip put on the end to reinforce the bottom. I didn't do it on this one because this I didn't deem as a directional fabric. That's just one piece of fabric. And again, don't hold me perfectly to these measurements. I've heard on the larger side. Once you start making them, you can figure out yourself. Now, where are they? These 3 here. Again, if you've just tuned in and you haven't watched part 1 and part 2, these 3 bags here are going to be won by somebody. These are 3 bags that I made, the first sort of ones that I made, that I'm going to select 3 winners, people who have become my patrons over on my Patreon account. That's people who leave me a tip money-wise. On my patrons, I'll put the link in blue down below, and then next month I'm going to be selecting a winner. One person's going to get that one, and that one, and they're the very beginning ones I've made, and they're not fantastic. I've gotten a little bit better, but these are going to be chosen, and somebody's going to win them. So I got bags and bags and bags. I got bags for days. Look at this. But I'm going to have some presents going. As I said, when I see people, the tutorial is actually for this little bag here, yeah. But I will take a picture of this and the marking, and again, you have to cut the interfacing. But again, refer back to part 1. So I hope you enjoy this little bag here, these measurements for this bag here. And if you do make them, I'd love to see your creations. Send them the pictures to Truelovequiltsforyou@gmail.com. I would love to see our little bags here that people have made. Somebody liked this one. Somebody said, I don't like red and I don't like stripes, but this one was their favorite. Isn't that funny? The red and the stripes. I've made all of them. Somebody said, oh, they couldn't find this fabric. I got this dog fabric at Walmart. Yeah, I got that at Walmart. And again, people are commenting how I put my colors together. I just sort of pull very quickly and willy-nilly. I see 4 colors there. I go to my stash and I pick out 4 colors, all different ones. I don't overthink it. And as you can see, I like I like colors. I think colors are, you know, are life. And so I like my different colors. But this one is for this one and this one. And yeah, I hope you enjoy this. So that's the end of my bag making. Somebody said, oh, can I make it smaller, like a wallet size? And I'm thinking, oh, mate, but I wanted a three zipper tiny little wallet. I don't know. I'll have to think about that. All right, folks, keep safe. Have a lovely day, and stay healthy. And I'll talk to you later. See ya. Is with your teeth up. It's a little bit funky, and you're going to match the right side of your zipper where we've just marked it right there. We're going to, so it's right exactly centered with the front of our fabric, the front of our little pouch here, going right off of the binding. You have exactly the same size on either side there, okay? Now what we're going to do is I'm going to go over to my machine, and I'm going to stitch with that, when it's right up at the top, the zipper tape right to the top of my machine. I'm just going to stitch it down. I'm just going to stitch it down very, very close to the edge, not where it's supposed to be stitched, because the next stitch, I'm just going to secure this bit from here to here down. So what we're going to be doing next is, again, with our bias tape, with the thicker side on the bottom, the narrower side, what we're going to be doing, and again, you can just overlap it there a little bit. We're going to be putting the edge of the zipper right into that fold, and we're just going to continue that right along there. So I'm at the point where I'm putting my zipper on, and this is a different project. I completely forgot to film, or my camera clicked off on the other one. But what we've done here is, if I'm repeating myself, excuse me, what I've done here is I've taken my zipper and I've placed it with the teeth up on either side of the bag, but I had marked it right exactly in the center of my zipper. I marked, and then I've marked the bag here, right there in the center of my bag. So there's a little mark there, and there's a little mark there on my zipper, and I placed it with the teeth up exactly centered on my bag. Okay, so I have this bit left over here, and I have this bit left over here. Now this application is, I'm using my double fold bias binding from the manufacturer. If anybody of you have worked with this, you realize that when it comes off of the little cardboard, that it's made so that the one side is wider than the other side, just by about a 32nd of an inch. But that way, for this, in this way, the bottom half here is wider than the top half. So that means when you sew the top here of this binding, it's going to catch on the bottom because the bottom has been manufactured wider. So that's what we want to do. Right now, I've started. Right now, I'm going to open my zipper up because it's just slightly awkward. And I always start about an inch. I always give myself about an inch leeway to wrap my zipper. This part, this method is I'm enclosing my zipper and I'm finishing the top of my bag in one go. If I was doing it with quilt binding, which my other bags have the quilt binding, I stitch it on and then sew it again. There's 2 steps, but this is just a 1-step process. So I have my binding in front of me, and here's the inside of my bag and the outside edge of my bag. As you can see, I've already stitched the binding on there. So what I've done is I've taken my zipper with my teeth up, and I've placed that zipper edge right into that fold. That zipper edge goes right into that fold. Let me just do this. Right into that fold there. Just place it. And then as you see, the zipper, the bias tape just fits right neatly next to those teeth. I'm just going to go slow. This is what we end up with. This is what we end up with there. Okay, my bias binding, and then on the back it's being caught. Okay, so now very carefully I have it right in front of me. I keep repeating, you want the needle right in front of the center of your body. That makes it so much easier to stitch and to sew. So now I'm coming to a heavier bit here. So I'm going to open up my tape and I'm just going to place, I'm just going to lay carefully, I'm not pulling anything, I'm just going to lay that edge right onto that fold, and then that just folds over right there because it's a little bit thicker now. Okay, it's a little bit thicker, keeping everything dead straight in front of us. Holding it. Now here's where I'm coming onto my bag, and the front of the bag, the top of the bag I should say, on this point is going to be finished. So I'm just carefully stitching, not going fast. Close to those teeth. We've already secured our zipper. Just fold that around. Just place that right in there. And right off. And then we're just going to finish the rest of the zipper. Now, I'm going to lift my presser foot with my needle down. I always find if you turn, you can open the zip a bit quicker. Close it so you don't hit the zipper tab. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut this off here because I'm working with a length. So I'll just open this up. Again, make sure everything's quite straight and flat. And I'll just put my presser foot down. And again, as you can see, I like to have that edge where I just go right off. Now, the test is, how does it end up looking? And there you go, on the top edge, it's a little bit, I've really caught it, as you can see, but it's nice. It's a nice finished edge. I hope you can see that because it's dark thread. So it's a nice finished edge. I've caught that binding. It looks really nice. And that is done. That's completely done. So when we close this zip up on this side of our bag, the other one goes on this side of the bag, which I will show you. And we have, then we have a nice finished edge. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my zipper here. And I'm going to find the middle, the marking of my zipper. And I'm going to take it over, the teeth up, No, making sure not to twist anything. I'm going to find the marking on the center of my bag, and I'm going to match that up, that mark to that mark. And this one, because the other side of the zipper is already sewn, I clip this because sometimes it can shift slightly. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to clip this onto the top edge, just to hold it until I can get it started up here. I'll unzip that all the way. And again, I'm just basting, I'm just going to be sort of tacking my zipper down. And oh, as you can see on these bias bits here, I made them a bit bigger, so I clip them off. And when I cut my bag, I don't cut the bit of my fabric off here. I make sure I just cut the backing and the batting off, but I want to retain as much of this area here as possible. So again, my zipper's not twisted. I'm going to start right at that point and secure my zipper down right on the edge. I will back stitch to secure my zipper down. So again, let's close our bag. And there's how it's going to turn out. We'll just have to put the other binding on it, just like we did with the first one. And then my big bag here, my big bag is ready, is done with my larger pockets here. So I'm just going to open up the zip. And again, take my bias binding. I'll start at this edge here. It's my bias binding, and I'll find nope, it's not that side. I have to turn it around. And I figure, okay, so I want the wide side towards the back the front of my bag, but stitching it like that. Always look visually what you're going to be doing. That's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be enclosing that zipper with the stitching out here. So here's where I start up here. Again, I'm going to start about an inch away, placing my zipper edge right on the edge of that binding. And, oops. Uh-oh. My thread, okay, my machine came unthreaded. There we go. Oh, I just seen binding fell. That's funny. I'm a bit of a mess. Okay, let's start this again. So I'll place that there. By all means, you can pin it or clip it if you want. I'll start up there just to get it started. Then go slowly. And I'm sort of, you can't see, but I'm sort of holding the bag to the front of me right now because it's a little bit awkward. Just close that to get this started. Like that. I'll stop it there. And then I'm going to open this up, open my bag up so I can just work with this bit of my zipper, not working with my whole bag. So there we go. Like that. Again, make sure everything is straight in front of it. It's a little bit awkward because it's attached, the zipper. It's attached back there. So, like that. Again, it's slightly awkward, but you can do it. Just place that right in the fold. Keep that nice and straight. There we go. And just proceed slowly. And again, I'm just gently placing this zipper and keeping everything dead straight in front of me, right into that fold there. Now when you attach the quilt binding, it's completely different. You're sewing it to the inside of the bag and then turning. It's a two-step, as I say, it's a two-step process. You're sewing it to this end and then you're turning it over and you're stitching it on the outside. That's when you're using your quilt binding, 2 1/4 inch folded quilt binding. But this is just one step now, and right off. This is just one step, how I showed you my first bag, and then you look and there's my finished edge. There's my finished top of my bag. I'm going to go press that. I'm going to go press that really well, because sometimes it gets those pulls in it, but you can press them out. And here's this, oops, here's this side of my bag, all nice and that's the side that you see again, and then my pockets. So yeah, so there. Now what we're going to do is I'm just going to put my zipper tab on. There's my zipper topped, nice, and it's very important. As you can see, my bag is nice and has been nice and is nice and square, because we oops, tuck that in right there. Is we've marked it perfectly, so our edges are lovely and straight like that. So I'm going to be making my zipper tab, and what I've done is I've just taken a piece of fabric. It's about 5 inches by about 4 inches or 3.5 inches, and I've turned over. I've gone over, and I've pressed this 2 sides in. I make my tabs a little bit bigger because I quite like them big. And what I've done is I've opened up my zipper. This is at the top. This is facing up. What I've done is I've just trimmed my zipper off, as you can see. I trimmed off all that bias binding. As you can see, this is the other end. I'll just trim this off like that, right above the zipper, above the metal tab there. And I've just, for now, I've just tacked my zipper on my folded up bit. Okay? Now what I'm going to do is I've pressed it. I'm just going to press this up like that. Just finger press that like that. And then I just sort of fold it in half so that these creased edges, my folded edges, match the top of my zipper tab right there. And then all I'm going to do is, oh, I should have changed it to later thread. Oh well, never mind. I'm just going to stitch across here. My fingers are in the way, sorry. Just to about the edge there. Needle down. And then I'm going to, the sides are all nice and matched up. You go down to the bottom. Press your foot up. Now I'm going to trim these threads off here, like that. Oh, more thumbs today. And then come up here, and as you can see, there's just a few folds. You just want to tuck them in like that. Make sure everything's nice and flat. Come up to the top. Needle down, and then what I like to do is I like to make a little X here. Put my needle down. I just go from that end up there to the corner, like that. Just right into that corner. Then I'll come up here again, just over the same line of stitching. I can see that. That's okay. Like that, and then I'll just again come back down on myself with an X. To that corner, and then again I'll come back up that same line of stitching, and to reinforce across the zipper tab itself, I'll do it again, so my zipper's not gonna just, and then off, and there's a nice little zipper tab. Looks nice on both sides, but the side that's going to show, if it would be showing, is this is just going to get tucked in right there. Right, you find the exact center back of your bag, bottom of your bag, and then you're just going to stitch it, either hand stitch it or machine stitch it. I usually hand stitch, believe it or not. I don't like to hand stitch, but I'll just stitch that on there so that when it's secured, the bag looks like that. When it's secured, it looks like that. So there is how I put a zipper in with my bias binding. with my double fold bias binding. So I hope you enjoyed this, folks. I'll address this in the beginning. This is the measurements and everything for the larger bag here. My pockets are sticking out a little bit, but they're not sticking. You can flip it out because my pockets are completely taller and enclosed. So there is a bigger 3 zippered pouch bag. Hope you love it. All right, folks. See ya. Bye.